Here we go. Matthew chapter 27. Judas's remorse. Now when morning came, all the priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus and put him to death. And they bound him and led him away and delivered him to Pilate, the governor. And when Judas, who had betrayed him, saw what had been condemned, he felt remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priest's elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. But they said, what is that to us? See to that yourself. And he threw the pieces of silver into the temple sanctuary and departed. And he went away and hanged himself. The chief priest took the pieces of silver and said, it is not lawful to put them into the temple sanctuary, since it is the price of blood. And they conferred together, and with the money bought, the potters fled as a burial place for strangers. Wow. For this reason, that field had been called the field of blood to this day. And that which was spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of one whose price had been set by the sons of Israel. And they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord directed me. Wow. Jesus before Pilate. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor questioned him, saying, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus said to him, it is as you say. And while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, do you not hear the many things that testify against you? And he did not answer him with regard to even a single charge. So the governor was quite amazed. Now at the feast, the governor was accustomed to release for the people. Any one prisoner whom they wanted. At that time, they were holding a notorious prisoner, Barabbas. So when the people gathered together, Pilate said to them, whom do you want me to release for you, Barabbas, or Jesus, who is called Christ? For he knew that because of envy that had handled him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent a message saying, have nothing to do with that righteous man. For last night I suffered greatly in a dream because of him. But the chief priest and the elders pursued the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to put Jesus to death. Wow. Wow. But the governor said to them, which of you two do you want? Oh, wait. I read this. But the governor said to them, which of the two do you want me to release for you? And they said, Barabbas. Pilate said to them, then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ? They all said, crucify him. And he said, why, what evil has he done? But they kept shouting all the more, saying, crucify him. When Pilate saw that he was accomplished nothing. Oh my gosh. When Pilate saw that he was accomplishing nothing, but rather that a riot was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. See to that yourselves. And all the people said, His blood shall be on us and on our children. Then he released Barabbas for them. After having Jesus scourged, he handed him over to be crucified. Jesus is mocked. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the praetorium, and gathered the whole Roman cohort around him, then stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And after twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head, and a reed in his right hand. And they knelt down before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. They spat at him and took the reed and began to beat him on the head. And they had mocked him. They took the scarlet robe off of him and put his own garments back on him and led him away to crucify him. As they were coming out, they found a man of Cyrene named Simon, whom they pressed into service to bear his cross. There you go. The crucifixion. And when they came to the place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they gave him wine to drink mixed with gall. And after tasting it, he was unwilling to drink. And when they had crucified him, they divided up his garments among themselves and casted lots. And sitting down, they began to keep watch over him there. And above his head, they put up the charge against him, which read, This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. At that time, the two robbers were crucified with him on the right, one on the right and one on the left. And those passing by were hurling abuse at him, wagging their heads and saying, You who are going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross. In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him and saying, He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now, if he delights in him, for he said, I am the Son of God. The robbers who had been crucified with him were also insulting him in the same words. Now, from the 6th hour, darkness fell upon the land until the 9th hour. 9 hours. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli. I'm not sure how to read that. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? And some of those who were standing there, when they heard it, began saying, This man is calling for Elijah. No, that's not what that means. Immediately one of them ran, and taking a sponge, he filled it with sour wine and put it on a reed and gave him a drink. But the rest of them said, "Let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And the earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs were opened, and many bodies of the saints who were fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now, the centurion and those who were with him, keeping guard over Jesus, when they saw the earthquakes and the things that were happening, became very frightened and said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." Many women were there looking from a distance, who had followed Jesus from Galilee while ministering to him. Among them was Mary Magdalene, and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. Jesus is buried. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who himself had also become a disciple of Jesus. The man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out in the rock. And he rolled a large stone against the entrance of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene was there, and the other Mary sitting opposite of the grave. Now, on the next day, the day after the preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered together with Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember that when he was still alive, that deceiver said, 'After 3 days, I am going to rise again.' Therefore, give orders for a grave to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may come and steal him away and say to the people, 'He has risen from the dead.' And the last deception will be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard. Go make sure it is secure as you know how." And they went and made a grave secure. And along with the guard, they set a seal on the stone. Wow. Wow. Judas, he gave him over, have remorse. And when he realized he couldn't get him back, he hung himself. Jesus stood before Pilate as they took him there. And Pilate realized he was an innocent man, and he wanted nothing to do with the crucifixion, so they took him himself. As they were going to crucify him, they beat him, spit on him, and forced him to carry a cross all the way to the place of a skull. Put him up there and nailed his hands to the cross and mocked him, gave him sour wine, had his hands splintered, so many things. Told him, "If you are the Son of God, then have yourself be brung down, or we don't believe you." And at the 9th hour, he said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And they thought he was talking to Elijah, but the reference back to an older verse in the Old Testament, the fulfillment of the prophecy. Wow. And he cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. He died. And behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split. And the tombs were opened up, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised, came back to life. A rich man named Joseph who followed him took his body, wrapped it up, and secured it in a burial place so no one else steal his body and say that his disciples took him before he raised. And Mary, and the other Mary were also there to witness him be buried in that same tomb. And that is the end of chapter 27. Hopefully I'm able to read the next chapter very soon. I don't have a face cam for this one because it's one of those times where I really need to experience the word of God, One of those days. Thank you so much for listening. Have a blessed day.